Hi, my name is Nicole Justin, and I am in the convocatoria for Docente de Planta for 2022 in the area of Didactica de Inglés. A little bit about my background. I started teaching, doing private English classes in Geneva, Switzerland for business professionals. After that, I went to Japan to teach at a school that was after school in the afternoon. So the idea was people could come and learn English after work or after they finished school. Most of my students there were also business professionals, although I did have three children's classes. After that, I decided that education was my vocation, and I went to get my master's in education, which I did at Pepperdine University in Los Angeles. And then I taught high school English in Los Angeles for 4 years after that. In 2014, I was given the opportunity to go teach at an international university in Bangkok, Thailand, where I started as an English teacher, but was quickly moved to academic writing. And then after that, they decided to open up a Bachelor of Arts in English, which I was the associate director of that program. Also, while I was there, I had the opportunity to get a second master's degree from the University of Liverpool. It's a master's of research, and I'm still in the process of having that degree convalidated. After I left Thailand, I went back to the United States and I taught academic writing again at San Jose State University in San Jose, California. And then in 2020, I moved to Colombia and I started working at Universidad del Magdalena, where I've been for the last 3 years teaching English at a variety of different levels. So the course that I have created is called Development and Implementation of Didactic Materials in Language Teaching. So a little bit about the microdiseño. This course will analyze the theories between different types of lesson plans and delivery methods. And then it will include using didactic materials in those delivery methods. So a prerequisite for this course, students will have already taken a course on the different delivery methods. And so then in this course, we'll be focusing mostly on how to implement didactic materials in those lesson plans, how to manipulate them for different types of delivery methods. And students will also do some planning of their own. The course will begin with theory in the beginning, and then we'll move into using, actually creating our own didactic materials and using them in lesson plans. So the resultados de aprendizaje for this class is students will develop their own didactic teaching materials. This is a huge part of the class. It really focuses on creating a variety of different types of didactic materials. They will identify the role of didactic materials in language teaching specifically, because language teaching is a little bit different from other topics. And it's really important that students get a hands-on experience and realistic experience to use language and to understand different grammar and different content there. Students will understand and explain the importance of using didactic materials. Didactic materials are really important in language teaching, and it's really important that the students will know that. They will do that by writing a theory paper. As I mentioned at the beginning of the course, we'll look at theory, and they will use the materials that they've read to write their own paper. So let's get right into the class. The objectives for the class will be to understand didactic materials in language teaching specifically, knowledge of terms for language learning and material development. Material development has its own vocabulary, so of course we'll spend time looking at that vocabulary and learning it. They'll be able to understand and describe different types of didactic materials. As I mentioned before, there'll be a huge emphasis on creating their own authentic materials. and then implementing didactic materials in their different lesson plans. So, beginning of the course, what are didactic materials? And basically, didactic materials are anything that facilitates learning. A little bit of history. Didactic materials started with things like worksheets and flashcards. I'm sure we've all used those in our educational experiences. And so that was kind of where didactic materials started. But of course, now in the digital age, didactic materials have become much broader. Of course, still worksheets and flashcards, but now it can also include things like games and realia and computers. For example, one thing I like to do with realia is when I'm teaching pronouns, I like to bring objects into the class like keys, or you can use your cell phone, any objects that you have, and pass them around the room and talk about I gave it to him, he gave it to her. So it's a really good, realistic situation for students to practice pronouns, for example. What is the purpose of didactic materials? The most important one is to reach all types of learners. We have three main types of learners: kinesthetic learners, audio learners, and visual learners. And often people are a combination of the two. I want the students to understand what type of learner they are. For example, I'm a kinesthetic visual learner, so I need hands-on things and I need to see stuff. And all of the students in the class will have a combination of those styles, or maybe they'll rely on one. And it's really important that you make the content, the language, the grammar accessible to all of your students. So the idea of didactic materials is to do that, to create audio, to create visual, to create kinesthetic things for your students to do. Of course, by doing that, you will be enriching sensory experience and stimulating imagination. And then those things help learning and help retention, which of course we want our students to remember the things that they're learning in class. So retention is really important. So what will you learn in this course? You'll learn the different types of didactic materials. We'll be using a variety of them throughout the course. As I mentioned before, you'll be creating your own materials. We will do a review of the different delivery, lesson delivery methods. Maybe that course you took last semester, but maybe you took it a couple semesters before, and we all forget things. So we will do a review of that. And then we will develop a complete lesson plan, which includes a variety of different types of didactic materials. And that's something that you will present at the end of the semester. Some of the resources that we will use are YouTube and Kahoot and Prezi, quizzes, Canva, which I'm using now to do this presentation, and a variety of others. I won't actually be teaching you how to use these resources, as I think many of you already know how to use them, but we will be looking deeply at the most effective ways to use them. And what kinds of lessons you want to use them for, when is a good time to use them. I'm also hoping that you guys as the students will bring new digital resources to the class that we can use. Part of being a teacher and part of learning is being a lifelong learner. And so we should always be striving to improve and to learn more and use new things. So I'm hoping that all of that is incorporated in this course. So for our first class activity, we're going to be doing a forum in Brightspace. All of our class materials will be in Brightspace. We'll be using that as our main platform. So I have a discussion topic for you. I want you to talk about some didactic materials that you've already used. Since you've taken classes on the delivery methods, or maybe some of you are already teaching, I am sure you've used some didactic materials in your classes. So what were the materials or activity that you used in your class? Why did you choose to use that activity or those materials? Was it effective? Um, I think something important as a teacher is to know that sometimes we plan things, but things don't always go according to plan, and that's okay. Things don't work out. But it's really important to look at why they didn't work out and analyze the effectiveness so that you can correct that for future lessons. So maybe something wasn't very effective. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why it wasn't effective and maybe how those materials could be used in a different lesson to be more effective. Um, and lastly, I want you to talk about how those materials can be used in a different way, or maybe other content that you could teach using those materials. So I'd like you to do your first post by Wednesday. And then by the weekend, I'd like you to read at least 2 of the posts of your peers and give them some suggestions. Maybe you can talk about the effectiveness of their materials, or you could talk about some different ways that they could use those materials with other content, or maybe with a different delivery method. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion and to reading your responses. And I will see you in the next class. Thank you so much.